Hello, everybody, and welcome to the January 2023 Builder Town Hall. I never cease to be amazed at how fast time flies these days. And here we are back together again, first Friday at noon, and I'm so glad you are here. My name is Meredith Oliver. I am the founder and president, chief digital strategist of Meredith Communications. We do digital marketing for home builders, from website design and development to search engine optimization to social media. If it's a digital need that a builder has to drive qualified traffic leads and sales, we can help. Today, I am joined by an awesome rock star panel. Some of our, not only our best panelists and guests over the years, but also such good friends. Carrie Mulcrone, Angela McKay, of course, are with us. But in addition today, Matt Riley and Dave Fetcher are here. And we intend to light up both your screen and the chat with some interesting hot topics. Things like, do we address the interest rate elephant in the room, or do we ignore it? Where are home prices going in 2023? Are they going up or are they going down? What makes a good leader in a bad economy? So some interesting hot topics once I'm done with our initial segment, and I hope that you'll stick around with us for those. If you haven't yet, please, as you're coming in, get in chat, introduce yourself, where you are, what your builder name is. We'd love to see that. Our panelists will be interacting with you while I'm busy talking. So please continue to do that and share ideas. One of the best things I think about Builder Town Hall is our conversational nature. This is not a webinar. This is a conversation between us and you. And even though we can't see you at the moment, we love to hear from you in chat. Okay, now I want to make a note for you that our next Builder Town Hall, our February Town Hall, will be moved back 1 week to the second Friday. That is February 10th, because the first Friday we will all be crawling home from Las Vegas from being at the Builder Show for several days. I think you'll be too exhausted to attend. We will certainly be too exhausted to teach. So kind of make a little mental note or get it on your calendar that the February Builder Town Hall is February 10th. And the topic will be best of the best of IBS. Of irritable bowel syndrome? No, the best of the best. I can hear one of the panelists laughing. Somebody needs to mute. The best of the Builder Show. So if you're a regular town hall member and you're attending the show and you would like to be the Builder Show and you would like to participate in the February town hall show and would be willing to write down some nuggets that you can share with the rest of the group, please reach out to me in private message. We would love to have you. So that will be March. Okay, so I generally kick off town hall with Meredith's metrics. And I'm going to go light on this today for two reasons. One, what really needs to happen in our online marketing traffic, our online lead generation. It's a little too soon yet to know if it's happening. What really needs to happen is from December 27th through the month of January, we need to see a line going up like this. January is traditionally the highest volume of online traffic that you'll have all year. In my 20-something plus, OMG, how did that happen? Years of doing new home sales and marketing, I can only recall 2 years where January did not do what January is supposed to do, which again is go like this right out of the holiday slump of online visits. So far in the 6 days of January that we've had, I have seen that ramp up line on many of our home builder website accounts, but it's a little too soon yet to know if we're going to get our full bump. The years that we didn't get the bump in January was a tough year. And it is a signal that there's less interest in buying new homes than there were in previous years. Now, that's not an excuse. We all still have to do our jobs and we have to do them well and we have to sell homes, but it is something to understand if that's what's happening. I always like to know what my headwind is that I'm fighting, not as an excuse again, but as recognition of this is what I'm up against. Now, how do I brainstorm to work effectively around it? So we're waiting for that. The other thing is the massive change that we're all going to be making from what's called universal analytics. So Google Analytics, Universal Analytics, or also known as Google Analytics 3 to Google Analytics 4. If your web company isn't already knee-deep in transitioning you from Universal Analytics to Google Analytics 4, they need to get going. Because we have a hard deadline in mid-year of when that transition must happen. In that transition, the definition of many of the statistics I've been quoting you in the Meredith's metrics segments, those definitions are going to change slightly. And as a result of how Google Analytics 4, for example, defines a website session, those numbers may actually go down compared to Universal Analytics, but they actually might be a bit more of high quality and reliable stats. So we're still all waiting through this big shift, but it didn't seem like the time to really dial into 10 different metrics when those metrics will be changing mightily over the course of the next couple of months. I think for Meredith's metrics today, all you really need to know is, and keep an eye on is your January making an upward line and headed up, up, up in terms of traffic, in terms of leads, in terms of conversations that you're having. And that's what I like so far. There are some things that frustrate me, but so far what I like about Google Analytics 4 is we're going to be focused much more on engagement and conversations versus visits and lead generation. So it's going to be a big change for all of us, but never fear. Builder Town Hall is here to help you wade through it, as well as many of our panelists who are also incredibly digitally savvy that could help you as well. Okay, so over the holidays, I listened to a series of books. The series is titled The Walk, and the author is Richard Paul Evans. There's 5 books in the series. They're each kind of short. So it took me about 5 or 6 hours per book to listen to it. I think it'd be a pretty quick read if you wanted the, a paperback or hardback version to read. The premise of the book is about a man who unfortunately loses everything. In the blink of an eye, he loses a very healthy wife that he loved dearly. They were only in their 30s, so it was very unexpected. Turns out his business partner has been stealing from him and steals his business from him. He loses his business. As a result, he loses his house. His cars get repossessed and all his friends abandon him. And you're like, okay, Meredith, this is really depressing. I know, bear with me. So the main character, Alan, crazy that that's his name of all things. My husband's name is Alan, if you don't know. He decides he's going on a walk. And he makes a promise to himself. Since he has no home, he has no cars, he has no business, and he's just lost the love of his life, he decides, he looks on a map, he's in Seattle, Washington. He looks on a map and picks the furthest place from it, Key West, Florida. And he makes you could almost say New Year's resolution. He sets a goal that he is going to walk from Seattle, Washington to Key West, Florida. It's written in first person, so it feels like a true story, but this is fiction. It's not a true story. But across the 5 books, you have the opportunity to witness someone who sets a goal and refuses to set it down, who, despite weather, crime, other family crises, many difficult things, will not let go of this goal. He truly followed up and followed through for himself. And I was just so inspired by this story. There's a little spirituality mixed in, but it's not heavy-handed. I would encourage any of you to listen. The author does the narrating, so the Audible version is outstanding, or you could read the books. Obviously, New Year's is a pretty typical time for us to reflect, to assess, to reevaluate. We're all like looking at that January website traffic, wondering what it's going to do and what kind of year we're going to have. So this is the time of year that we typically set those goals. Here's an interesting little statistic for you. At mid-year, 54% have already broken their New Year's Eve resolutions. They have not followed through with themselves for themselves. And by end of year, it's only 9%, and only 9%. So I think the whiplash reaction that many of us have had to, we know we don't keep them. So our response has been to what? What do you do in the chat? What do? You don't make them. We literally have given up on the idea of New Year's resolutions because we know we won't keep them. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do them, but I'm not sure just wholeheartedly like giving up on improving ourselves, on developing ourselves, on reaching new goals personally, professionally. I don't think giving up on that is really the best way to do it. That's what I'm here to ponder and to offer today. So as I took this walk book series really in and digested it, this talk formed. And when we were trying to decide what to do for the January interview today, I just felt strongly that I had something that I could share with you that might help you kick off this natural time of reflection, goal setting, mantras, whatever it is you do. I mean, some people just pick a word, some people pick a theme for the year, some people set goals, resolutions. I don't care how you do it. And I don't really care if you do it at New Year's or if you do it at mid-year. It doesn't matter. At some point, you will need to make some goals for yourself. And so that is what we are going to explore. Because let me ask you this. If you were to be really honest, on a scale from 1 to 5, you don't have to put it in chat or anything like that, but on a scale of 1 to 5, how well do you keep and really work towards the goals that you set for yourself? How well do you follow up and follow through with or for yourself? Because what I would like to say today is that if you aren't doing it for yourself, how can you do it for your customers? How can you do it for your colleagues? And if you don't show up for yourself to stay true to the goals, to the things that you want to achieve, who will do it? If you don't show up for you, who will do it? The answer is nobody. You have to do it for yourself. So take that score 1 to 5 and really think about that and internalize, where am I? And then in listening to my ideas today, And they aren't all mine. They come from a variety of sources. Angel will be sharing the links to the source articles as we go. And many of them are probably things you've heard before, but maybe today was the perfect day for a reminder. Okay, number one, I would like you to think about these goals, the mantra, the one word, whatever it is that you're going to do. Number one, I want you to elevate your goals and transform them into a promise. When you set out to do something for yourself, if you are wanting to get more exercise, if you are wanting to stop smoking, have better relationships, make more sales, well, we set goals. But if you were to elevate a goal to the level and understand that what you're really doing is making a promise to yourself, that takes on a whole new meaning. So we don't want to make these casually, and these are important things, and we don't want to overload ourselves with too many, because breaking them is really problematic. So here's a quote. I love this, that I found: the most important person to keep promises with is who? Yourself. Is with yourself. And you may not realize that when you elevate a goal to a promise that you make yourself, when you break that, you hurt your own self-belief and you hurt your ability to trust yourself. And that's where it then begins to have this ripple effect, cascading effect, use the metaphor of your choice, onto colleagues and customers. That lack of self-belief and lack of trust in yourself drags you down and drags all of them down with you on the other commitments or promises that you've made yourself. So change the word goals to promises, to commitments. This is what I will or won't commit to. This is another quote that I found that I really loved. Self-confidence is earned. Self-confidence is earned by keeping promises to yourself. Oh, I love that. And I think we so naturally teach our kids this, or if you're involved in sports, you've probably had a coach that modeled this kind of behavior for you, to you, right? But are you breaking promises to yourself that's having an effect on the people around you, both at work and at home? So number one, elevate those goals to promises. Okay, bye-bye. Number one, you're off. Okay, number two, promise small, promise yourself small. So promise small, as I said, don't work on too many things at one time. Don't overload yourself. So under promise yourself, and of course, follow through or deliver big. Promise small, follow through big. And when you're thinking about these promises, some of you think of what you will do. This is what I want to do for the year. So this is the promise I'm making myself. But some of you think in opposite terms of what you won't do or what you want to stop. I want you to really assess both, because if you're heavy-handed on the will, you're probably not thinking about the flip side of the coin, which is the won't, which will come into play just here in a minute. If you're thinking about the won'ts, you're not thinking about the wills. Like, it takes both in order to keep a promise to yourself. If you're going to walk across the country on foot in this fictional series, you've got to know what you will and won't do to keep the promise of the walk. All right. So number two was promise small, follow through big, right? Or over deliver to yourself. Okay. All right. Here, number three, when you're thinking about what this promise or commitment to yourself that you want to make, when you think about what it is, the third thing is, I want you to identify the outcome, but I want you to make your promises based on the behaviors that lead to the outcome. So oftentimes our goals, our mantras, our commitments are outcome based. I want to increase sales by this percentage. So I need to call this many people a day. No, you don't do it that way. You say, my goal is to increase sales by this percentage. And like I just said, we have to identify what will you do and what won't you do to get that. So those behaviors of I'll make 5 phone calls a day, I'll email 10 realtors a day, those are the actual behaviors. Those are the actions. So I want you to identify the outcome, but promise yourself based on behaviors. Promise yourself based on behaviors. What are you going to do? And then Angela and Carrie will just be so shocked. For me, I wrote on this pad, expletive, the outcome. Oh, Meredith cursed the first time in 2023. It wasn't Carrie. We have a running joke on Town Hall on who will curse first. But literally, you have to focus on you want the outcome, but the behaviors are how you're going to get there. If your promise is just about the outcome, things change. Things change. People get sick. Things that are completely out of our control hit and take over. And so sometimes the outcome isn't really where we thought we were going, but it's the perfect place of where we need to be. So I think Carrie, and I am good at it, she says in chat. I know you are. How many of you have, and I didn't put a link in, I'm sorry, and I forgot this one. How many of you have seen the movie or read the book, The Story of Louis Zamperini? The book is Unbreakable. Louis Zamperini was a prisoner of war who survived unimaginable torture at the hands of his captors. He was eventually released. He survived it, returned home to then start fighting the demons in the form of addiction and alcoholism of what happened during the time that he was a prisoner of war. And so his story is not only about the time that he spent in that filthy, subhuman, tiny cell for years that he lived in and was tortured in, but it was also about when he got out, he was still living in that cell, but he was actually free to make whatever choices he wanted, but he was stuck back. His quote is about, like, let me back up. If you were to ask him, and they did in the book, how did you survive it? Like, how did you do it? I made it. He said, I would say to myself, I made it this far and refuse to give up because all my life I've finished the race. I've made it this far and refuse to give up because all my life I've always finished the race. I want you to be able to say that to yourself. I want you to be able to say, and not be one of the 9% that it didn't happen, the change you needed to make or wanted didn't occur. I want you to be able to say, I finish what I start. And you can only do that when you, one, elevate the goal to a promise. You understand the damage that you do to yourself when you fail to keep them. When you identify the outcome, but focus on the behaviors you need to get to achieve that particular goal, and then you will know there's how to get it done. You will know. There's an African proverb. The best way to eat an elephant is what? Put it in chat. The best way to eat an elephant is what? Anybody know? Yeah, that's good, Sarah. One bite at a time. And that's why I say, promise small, deliver big, one bite at a time. as you make commitment to yourself. I love you guys all chiming in on chat. That makes me so happy. It's such a weird experience to go from presenting to people that are in front of you that you can gauge, is this like bombing or is this doing well, to just a camera lens and hoping that it's translating into something usable for you. It is a very odd experience, I have to tell you. Okay, so you have said F the outcome. I'm going to focus on the behaviors. What's next? Okay, whoop, we did that. Goodbye, go away. All right, next one, number 4. Expect the following. You want to expect excuses. You're going to make excuses. On days you don't want to follow up and follow through for yourself, you're going to make them. And it's nothing to be ashamed of or embarrassed about, or to think I need to quit because this isn't working. Now, we may need to make adjustments. I'm going to get there in a minute. But you should expect that you're going to make excuses to avoid doing this, or you would have done it already. I want you to expect discomfort. Many times when we set these lofty ambitions for ourselves, we have a rose-colored glasses view of how it's all going to play out. I'm going to do this and the world will be saved. My world will be wonderful. Everyone around me will be wonderful. Everything will be great. Is that always what happens? No. Especially when you start changing behaviors, it is uncomfortable. You will be discomforted. I don't think that's a word. You will be discomforted. You might be a little miserable, but that's okay. We're going to keep going. You should expect delays. You should expect obstacles, huge, huge obstacles. You should expect all of these things to happen. And if you think of something else that we should expect along the way of this journey, of this walk to keeping our promises to ourselves, light it up in chat. I want to hear it. But excuses, discomfort, delays, and obstacles, you will not be thrown off by them because you expect them. I expect I'm going to get sick and it's going to throw me off being able to go to the gym. But as soon as I am able, I will get right back on it. I will expect some discomfort. I remember some of our early town halls where I was first starting to ride the Peloton, and I would tell you guys like how sore I was. It was discomforting at first, and then it got massively comforting. So you have to know that there are going to be challenges, obstacles that are coming, but you expect them. You also, I think, have to get really honest with yourself. And this is like that voice that talks to you in the middle of the night that tells you the truth. When it's dark and it's quiet and you're up and everybody else is asleep, and the voice in your head tells you pretty clearly, at least for me, of where I need to make adjustments or try to achieve or strive for something better or different. And it's that voice, that still soft voice, that's probably your most honest voice. And when you're thinking about what your potential excuses could be, what delays you might face, what obstacles you might face, you can then plan for those. But it takes some real self-reflection to say, like, I remember Angela, for example, one year did 75 hard with Chad. And anybody else that did that program, 75 hard, if you're not familiar, is a really challenging fitness program. You work out twice a day, you drink gallons of water every day. Like, it has very specific behaviors that you do for 75 days. Now, Angela can do this, but if I can't even imagine if I were to try to say, I'm going to do 75 hard. Can you even, there's not enough, I don't know what it's called these days, but Bengay in the world to get me through 75 hard. It just isn't going to happen. That is above my physical fitness capabilities, especially these days with chronic migraine. So that honest voice in my head tells me that's not the goal for me. But does it mean that I can't walk on a treadmill every day? Does it whatever? No, of course not. So tap in, get really still, get quiet so that you can hear the real you talking that's giving you the answer. When you expect and plan for tough times in keeping this promise to yourself, if you will, number 5, feed yourself. If you will feed yourself regularly with specifically content that helps you keep going, the content that helps keep you motivated, that helps you stay accountable. You're going to need tools. You're going to need resources. You're going to need other people along this journey on keeping this promise to yourself. And so number 5, feed yourself, is really about identifying what are the books, what are the podcasts, what are the TED Talks, what music do I listen to? Do I want to put sticky notes everywhere? Do I want to do wearable jewelry that means something to you, that helps keep you on track with your one-word mantra? I have some that I never take off, and they mean various things to me. And when I look down, they encourage me and keep me going. You also want to feed yourself with some short-term rewards. So if you think about this big promise that you want to make to yourself for the new year, so you can follow through and follow up for yourself, I want you to think about, okay, maybe you feel like it'll take you a year to get there, but how could you short-term build in some rewards, build in some treats along the way that will help keep you going? So you'll need tools, you'll need resources, you'll need other people, and you'll need some treats in order to keep your promise. All right. And then number 6, this is our last one. So here we go. Number 6, you'll need to be able to forgive yourself and be flexible. Forgive yourself and be flexible. There will be days that you maybe don't keep that promise as well as other days, and that's okay. You'll have problems along the way, but honestly, some problems are not nearly as big a problems as we tend to make them into, as we tend to think that they are. My grandfather on my dad's side, my dad says he always had this saying that if money can fix it, it isn't really a problem. Now, I'm not trying to say that money problems aren't real problems. They are. I've lived them certainly through the years. I totally get that. But what his point was is, if you've blown a tire out and you can go get yourself the tire fixed that day, that's not really a big problem. And so as we think about what we're going to encounter along the way, we've got to really identify what is a problem and what isn't, and be flexible enough to adjust. If we need to change the promise we made to fit more into where we are right now, be flexible enough to change it. So forgive yourself and be flexible. This will require compassion, and it will require acknowledgement of when you're letting yourself down. So again, that still small voice. The last thing I would say to you is really think about the people that you are going to go, because you will take some people with you on this journey. They may not volunteer, they may be voluntold, but as you strive to keep promises for yourself, you will need a team to support you. And as I bring and invite our panelists on to switch into our hot topics discussion, I will tell you, this is my team. This is my tribe of people that every time I say, hey, can we try this? Can we jump on that? Can we do this? They just say, okay. And along the journey we go. I made a promise to all of you to have a builder town hall once a month. And we have on almost every month that we said we would, even when I was really struggling, or maybe my migraine pain level was high, and Carrie and Angela took the ball and ran with it. So you'll need a team of people. And these are some of the best team of people I ever saw. All right. So that is our motivational stuff. I thought it would be great for January to go that direction. Let me find our hot topics piece of paper, and we're going to switch into that. All right. So hot topic number one, here we go, panel. I'm going to throw this one to you, Carrie, for you to weigh in. I've got a headline. Many prospective buyers are waiting for the volatility in mortgage rates to subside. So my question is, for a little debate here, is do we approach the interest rate elephant in the room, or do we pretend I don't see an elephant at all? What say you, Carrie Mulcrone?
So it's hard to say the elephant's not in the room, because
right.
So not talking about him is difficult, but I think that our role that we've got this year is not making it be so big. The elephant's so big. What you just have to do is minimize it, because it's there, right? So one of my suggestions, I think, that you have to have people to understand is you can't look back at an interest rate because you weren't in that market.
Mm-hmm.
There was probably something in your life, some reason you were not in that market, so that was not your interest rate. You can't look ahead as to what might it be, because you might not be in that market and it might not be better. So I think you have to look at, when is my time to buy, and buy then, and it will all even out. I mean, we all know, I owned a credit card house, 12 3/4, but it was my time to buy my first house. You don't want to get frozen by it. So I think minimize that elephant and don't make it this huge discussion, but do understand that there's aware. And there's always the plus to a higher interest rate, because usually the loan limit goes up, so you can buy more. Who doesn't buy more?
There's a reframe for you. All right, anybody else want to jump in, maybe have a different take on it, or a different approach, or want to echo what Carrie said?
I think that, certainly interest rates are the elephant in the room, right? Like, the interest rates are what caused the slowdown. I think it's a two-prong approach right now. And I think as builders and marketers and salespeople, we all have to look at it from a two-prong approach. It's interest rates, but more than anything, it's overall affordability, right? So it's that shock. It's not as much about the specific interest rate as it is the payment that they're getting, for what they're getting now. And so some of the things that I've seen in the Raleigh market, are a couple pieces, right? One is, we've seen prices shoot up so high. And I was actually talking with a friend of mine on New Year's Eve, who's a financial analyst and stuff. And he said something that was pretty interesting, which was, over time, if you look at, he said, home price appreciation is inflation. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, if you look at the overall trend over the last few, forever, basically home price appreciation has been on the same line as inflation has, right? And then you think about, depending on the market, that can be a little bit different, but on average, a 2 to 5% home price appreciation. And what's the Fed shooting for? A 2.5% inflation rate, right? And so those things, so what we were talking about is, if you're looking at 20% year over year appreciation, and roughly we've seen 10 to 12%, 12% inflation, then you can expect those home prices to come back and catch up with what that inflation. Now, that's not a price drop, right? That's a home price appreciation coming back in line with inflation numbers, and then that comes and that all settles back in together. And so I think that there's no silver bullet right now from a marketing perspective that's going to take someone who's not only looking at interest rates and their affordability, but really what they're looking at is, I'm afraid to buy something right now because I think prices are at the tip top, and doom and gloom, home prices are going to crash, right? That's what they think. And I think it's Ali Wolf that had the term, not FOMO, but whatever, fear of buying at the top, FOBAT, right? So fear of buying at the top.
I loved that. Yes.
That's right. And so that's where those things kind of come into play. And so we do have to take that stuff I think we do have to take it head on with the prospect, and we have to address it, and we really have to re-educate them that those days are past. There's no more 3% money. That was never real money. It was all artificially inflated anyway. And just like all things, that bill has come due. Right. And so that's where we are now. So sometimes a little bit of time has to pass for that reality to set in for people of when we use this during COVID all the time in this webinar, which was the new norm, right? Everybody's got to realize what their new norm is. And hopefully we're starting to see that new norm settle into play in January with increased activity.
Yeah.
I want to call attention. Oh, sorry, Kier. I want to call attention to a couple of people in chat that are, Trey's got a great comment. The higher interest rates will eventually bring prices down and more people closer to home ownership. Juan chimed in with empathize, minimize the elephant, the objection, come back to the future promise. Glenn chimed in climatize. I like that. We're educating people to the current climate. Gary, what did you have? And then we're going to go to the next one.
To your point, Matt, yes, but I still think if we fix on it with them, then we paralyze them.
Sure.
So there are so many more dynamics to selling someone a new home than just the interest rate. And that's the only thing that I'm afraid of, because like you said, marketing, and it's like, we'll play your closing costs, we'll buy down a rate, we'll do this. There are so many more emotional things.
Yep.
So don't just stick on the logical thing.
Yeah. People buy a home with emotion and they back it up with logic.
That's right.
They do. So to kind of wrap this up before we go to our next one, what I'll say is, from the marketing side, what we've had to do is put some of those hooks out in the water on your website, that we have interest rate solutions, we have financing solutions, because honestly, lead generation was down so much that holding those back until a one-on-one sales meeting was happening was too late in the process. So while keeping it simple and kind of generic, not going into too much detail, making too many promises online, putting those out as hooks has helped a lot, and has gotten lead generation back up so that we can have a climatizing conversation while we minimize but acknowledge. Okay, I think I got all that. All right. My next one, I was going to throw to you, Matt, on home prices, but I think maybe you might have just covered that. But anything else you want to say on where you think home prices are going up or down?
Yeah. So Trey said, obviously, is like, if rates go up, it's going to push home prices down. I think there's a couple pieces to unpack there that tie into overall where home prices are going to go. So interest rates were so cheap, 3%, 2.5% money. And we had, obviously, with supply chain and home prices skyrocketed the way that they are, prices, if you do the math, prices cannot come back down to where the money is the same at 2.5%. It can't happen. And so the other problem that you've got is you've got something like 2/3 of the U.S. household home ownership, the U.S. households that own a home, have a rate sub 4%. So I just had a meeting with a realtor this morning. And so what we were talking about was, even what they're seeing is, and kind of a prediction is, someone who's selling their home on the resale market, what they're doing is they're going to put their home on the market unless they have to move, unless they have a life-changing event, a marriage, a divorce, a kids, a relocation, a true life-changing event where there's a have to move, that seller is either going to get what they want to get for their home, or they're going to pull it off the market and not sell it because they're sitting on 2.5% money. They're not willing to take $150,000 hit to offset the rates from where they were to where they are. So I think that's going to help keep pushing inventory levels down. And now then we go, okay, well, where do home prices go? And this is where, as home builders, we have a lot more of an advantage when we talk about overall home prices. Now in the Raleigh market, I think we could start to see anywhere from a 5 to 7% home price decline. Now, the key part is going to be 5 to 7% is nothing, right? You're going to make that back over normal appreciation rates in a couple of years. It brings things back in alignment. However, when you get into that, like what the builder can do, it's not going to be in the same house for the same square footage for less money. What builders are already doing, and other people in the market, they're bringing out new product at a lower feature level at a smaller home. So I'm already seeing new construction only pricing tick down between pending and actives, and then what's coming on the market, but it's not price cuts. It's smaller product with less fancy stuff in it, right?
Yeah.
So that's where that pricing coming down is coming from. It's in the new construction, it's coming from a smaller home, and you break that down at a price per square foot basis. It's still even money, right? We're just bringing new product out that hits a different price point, what people can actually buy. That's where I see things are going. I just do not, it's not possible, or I shouldn't say it's possible. It's not probable that home prices come down the amount of money that rates went up. That inversion is worse than the Great Recession.
So Matt, are you saying then that a move-up buyer, it's harder to market to a move-up buyer in this market than a first-time buyer? So
absolutely.
So here's a real life scenario. I realize I'm in the market for my kids to move out. Right. And we're willing to help. We're willing to help them and help myself.
Like, really help them out.
It's that, we've heard it over and over again, the bank of mom and dad, right? So is it, convince me, and you know what, I'd love to hear from our attendees as well. Convince me that it is, a good time to buy a house or a condo or townhome, because that may be the more where I am anyways, that's more realistic, to get that, to get them out of the house.
Hey, Ange, I got a thought for you on that one, and I just thought about it. And Lauren and John, she's really sorry, I tell you.
No, she's not.
They're not listening.
No, she's not.
But I think that if we're talking about a first-time buyer right there, and your kids, what happens when you do get into home ownership? What are the other maturation things, the things that all of a sudden I have to make the house payment so they do further their careers? I think that, again, I'm kind of on, we got to balance emotion and logic, because you want them to grow, and home ownership helps kids grow.
Yeah, Dave, you want to weigh in here?
Yeah, I was just, that it's a really interesting conversation. I love all the comments that people are putting in. I think, as salespeople, we have to discover in many cases, what are the advantages compared to the disadvantages. And Angela, you just said, I'd like to get my kids out of the house. And Carrie, you just mentioned a number of reasons why it's not just good for Brian and Angela to have the kids out of the house, but it's also really good for the kids to start at this level. So you can't necessarily focus on pricing. And I think there are some real advantages to being a buyer right now. I think there's some fabulous, if you're willing to do some shopping and you're willing to look at all the incentives that are being put out there as a buyer, there are some deals to be had. And it really just depends on the market that you're in. But there is no bad time to buy a home, and especially to get your kids started. So I think when you look, Angela, at is this a good time, The answer is obviously yes. And it's really up to the salespeople to discover that and to really bring that to the forefront, not just on the financial side, but what are the other benefits,
Yeah.
both to you and your husband, but also to your kids and their future moving forward. And I think that's where we have to be able to discover that.
And
Now,
I think that you've really hit something on all of the points that in all of our hot topics, Meredith, that it's like you have to be able to discuss the big picture, not just the one thing. That is the interest rate right for us to buy a new home is one question in the equation.
one.
One. And we've always learned, and I hate to say, the sales process never dies, but there's some things to reduce things to the ridiculous and figure out all the other things. And to everybody that's on, I think that's what's going to be helpful from everything that everybody's saying, that we have to understand how to discover, is that interest rate even like paramount with someone?
Yeah.
Might be.
The reason that I chose interest rate, home prices, good or bad time to buy is in my conversations, I feel like our sales teams are being paralyzed by these like elephants in the room that's taking up all the space. So I wanted you all to have some, not only the motivational piece today, but a very practical conversation about just how you'll manage some of these things in your own mind so that you can then help other people weigh out what is best for them. And so that's kind of where we're going with it.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah,
Meredith,
please.
and this is a real life example because I am in the market. So I've received 2 calls and emails in the last week, one from a realtor who I'm familiar with, and the other was from a new development that is not far from here. That was a new year. Angela, how are you doing? We know you're looking for a place. It may be the right time to start looking again. And so now is the time for all you salespeople in the room. It is time to sort of dig back into your database, go back into your database, do some prospecting, because this is that time of year, right? It's a new year. People are looking, they're now refreshed. They're looking at options. They're looking to get their kids out of
100%.
So, I mean, basically, Angela, what the messaging that you got there was giving you permission. Sometimes we have to set up permission that is a good time to start looking again. I wrote down give permission. I love that. And then out of some of Matt's comments, I wrote down the have to moves. I really love that because there's a lot you could do in marketing, both visually and in messaging directly to the have to moves. And that was awesome. That was a good one.
That's where like the sales and marketing pieces have to come together, right? So the marketing message is a quick, like 1-sentence thing that's trying to get someone to respond. So then in the sales process, you can dive in deeper to all the other things that are motivating that individual and that family, right? Like you can't have a marketing campaign that covers all these potential things about like, how do you get your kids to move out of the house? Well, Angela, you can just go buy the smaller house and they have no options. Sorry, guys, mom and dad are moving. It's time to
fresh
go.
out of space.
Right. Like all that comes in the discovery process with that individual, which then this is where kind of like from a leadership perspective, like how sales and marketing and company leaders have to come together and make sure that everyone's singing from the same sheet of music, because someone who's not in marketing is like, marketing, you need to cover bop, 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 bop. You're like, I can't cover all those things, then the rest of you like, well, you've got to cover this. And so as good leadership, you've got to be able to bring all of that together, especially in a 2023, where it's going to probably be a bumpy 12 months. So like, how do you guys, I know from a leadership perspective, Angela and Dave, like, how do you guys, like, how do you really get together to form and be a good leader in more uncertain times?
Yeah, it's a
Mhm.
great question, Matt. And sorry, Angela, I didn't mean to jump in there on Matt's question. I know we just have a couple more minutes, but leadership is setting examples, and I think we talk a lot, and I've certainly seen this in the last year or the last 6 months. There's a lot more micromanagement, and part of the role that I have is I really take deep dives into analytics, really look at what's actually happening within a community, and what's happening with the salespeople in most cases. And I think we need to have a higher level of accountability in many cases for our agents. But unless we understand kind of what accountability means and not letting salespeople off the hook when something isn't accomplished, I think having that level of accountability, we talked a lot about. I always focus on follow up, and one of the things that drives me crazy is in many cases when. Not that you're not followed up within 6 months, Angela, about, are you still looking for a home? But it's after an appointment has been made by an OSC, and we all know that appointments are a lot more difficult to have right now. After an appointment's made by an OSC, it's like we're still checking off the box, like this is a year ago. Like, oh well, they're going to come back if they want to come back, and we're not holding our salespeople accountable to do the required level of follow up that is expected. And I think because consumers have so many options right now and they are shopping, if they are in a must buy situation, they are shopping more and more. And in many cases, pricing is similar, incentives are similar. So what is the difference? And in many cases, it is the level of follow up that is maintained. And I've been talking about this for 15 years. And it's more evident today that this level of follow up has to be at such a high level that people cannot escape you, and it breaks my heart. It really does when I see how much a lead is costing right now, which is through the roof. The level of effort and activity that it takes to get somebody to buy a home, and how much conversation needs to be had. It's not 7 to 12 points of contact anymore. It's 30 to 50 points of contact to make a sale. So if we don't start with the first one after somebody walks into our model and takes one of our brochures and takes an hour of our time, then how do we get to that 30 to 50 is the next point. So when I talk about leadership, it's really setting an expectation. And if you need to micromanage, then let's micromanage. Let's set the bar at where we expect it to be. One of my favorite quotes, and I'm not sure who did this, but we expect what we accept. And if we accept a very low level from our salespeople, then we can't expect them to exceed that. So I think having that mentality that our expectations have to be, elevated for our salespeople, and for the ones that can't accommodate that, or for ones that won't, then we have to make some tough decisions, because the consumer has a much higher level of expectation now than really they've ever had of what the relationship is going to be with their sales agent. Okay. Yeah. Now it is 1 o'clock, so I just
So I'm gonna pull everything together, and if we think about, as say, if we're in sales and one of our core functions is that follow up and follow through with people that we've had conversations with, even though that's in your professional life and it's something that your job is asking of you, it is still a promise that you are making to yourself and to your sales manager and to your builder team, your whole team, that you will follow through on what you set out to do. And that's why I started with the content I did today, because I believe as we embark on a fun year of overcoming obstacles, we will need to build the muscle of follow up and follow through. And that muscle that you build starts with yourself. And it does with all of your relationships. It starts with yourself, with your job. In every scenario, the change starts with you. And we know that, but we let ourselves down in a million little ways. So elevate your goals to promises. Think about what you will and won't do in order to achieve them. Expect to fail a few times along the way. Be flexible if you need to adjust the promise, and find a team and a set of resources that are going to feed you and nourish you along the way. We would love to be that team. we here at Builder Town Hall take pride in what we bring to you. And if one of us can be of help or service to you this year, we would certainly love to do that. Except for Matt, he would like to sell you a house if you'd like to buy one.
I'm always happy to talk to people.
Right, I know you are, but you are a busy dude and we don't want to overwhelm him. But all of us here hope to be on that resource list for you moving forward. Okay, Builder Town Hall, February, what's the date?
10.
The 10th, thank you. Second Friday, not first Friday. Second Friday, say it louder for the people in the back. Second Friday, Best of the Best Builder Show. Private message me if you'd like to participate because we'd love to have you. Carrie Mulcrone, Angela McKay, Dave Betcher, Matt Riley. I am so blessed and so thankful that you are on the journey with me to the promises that I've made to myself and to all of you. I am better for it. All right, it's 1:03. We got to go. See ya. And
Bye,
we'll see
everybody.
you.
Bye.
Builder
See the
Show.
Builder Show.
Yeah.
We will.
Come
Have a good
find
one.
us.
Bye-bye.